Hi, everybody. Welcome to Q&A Tuesday. I had we had a wonderful group in Year of Inquiry yesterday. And of course, there's lots of questions that appear and arise in Year of Inquiry among the people participating and the members that influence questions and answers here for Q&A Tuesday. And I was really thinking about those yesterday. And one is just the general idea that thinking appears. Like here we are so interested in looking at the nature of thought, how we're perceiving things, how we're seeing life in the world, what's happening there, and that it looks dangerous and uncomfortable and troubling and stressful. We'll say, I don't like the way I'm thinking. I don't want to be having all these thoughts. I have intrusive thoughts. They're invading my space. Or I've blanked out. I want more thinking to happen that's clear and concise and understandable and less confusing. I want that kind of thought. I don't want these chaotic thoughts. I don't want nightmarish thoughts. Of course, none of us do. And look what happens when we're seeing the nature of thought in this particular way. So this is sort of a meta inquiry, I suppose. But let's not get too complicated about it. So, what we do in the Work of Byron Katie is we actually identify the concepts that are appearing. I hate this. I don't like that. This is better. I want that over there, but I don't have it yet. I wish this wasn't happening. I wish this was happening. It should be different than it is. I want this to change. Basically, all thoughts related to that, kind of whatever's opposing what is. It doesn't want to accept what is. And I'm not saying that the solution is that we should accept. Never. There's nothing to be condoned here. That's not that's not seeing the solution clearly in a clear way. But we look at what's happening, and we'll see that there's lots of thinking running through the mind, and it totally affects our body. There was a client last week who was talking about intrusive thoughts, using that word intrusive thoughts. I know it's a term used in psychology, or sort of a diagnosis, or like a problem situation. And notice what happens when we think these thoughts are so terrible that they're intrusive. I mean, it's so strange to look, because I've had different encounters and situations where my mind is also like a broken record, kind of repeating the same vision over and over again, repeating what happened, almost like it's stuck on something that's like got sound and blinking lights of emergency lights, like a backup truck going beep, beep, over and over. And that's what compulsion feels like too. I'm thinking about getting the thing that I want to, have, that behavior that I want to do, that substance that I want to acquire. And it's just repetitive, intense thought seems to be like rejuvenating itself over and over again. So I know what it's like to feel super uncomfortable when there's thinking happening and repeating, and noticing that the mind just seems to work like that. How interesting when you sort of step back and fall back and watch what is going on there, that the organism, the engineering of this thing called a mind and a person and being human, does this repeat pattern thing, just has the same thoughts over and over again. And even like we feel scared with something or so uncomfortable. Addiction feels like that. It's just looking and saying the same thing about something over and over again. So for today, just noticing all this and going kind of I call it meta, just sitting back and looking and seeing that there's a concept in there that's a thought, but it says these kinds of thoughts shouldn't happen. They're totally not just unwanted. I want them to go away forever. They're actually intruding in my life. They're intruding on my experience. They're overwhelming me. I remember looking up the word overwhelm once, and it's so wonder in the English language, there's all these very ancient words for boating, just being out at the sea, where a boat feels so small and tiny in this vast sea. And overwhelm means the water is coming over the whelm, and you're going to sink. You feel like you are going to drown. You're going to die. You'll say, my feelings are so overwhelming. The thought being there, I'm going to die with these feelings, or something has to happen. Like the only thing that's going to stop, I have to stop these thoughts and the feelings they're producing. And the only thing that's going to stop them is actually eating the food. Then it'll be over. And I won't have to be with this repetitive thinking, or, get up and do something completely distracting, or, just the body tensing and with tight fists. All the different ways that we try to actually stop thinking, feeling that resistance inside. So let's just do the work today on, I don't like these thoughts. They should go away. I shouldn't have them in the first place. And it's really funny because it seems like that is going to be, far more peaceful and relaxed. But it's picturing that place where these thoughts don't exist. Noticing and just having that conviction. I want these thoughts to go away. I want that repetitive thing that I'm thinking about that person or about that situation, about those images I've seen on my computer. I want it to stop. Is it true? Yes. It's funny, like you might even think, if you're like my mind, like, how can we even ask the question, is it true? Of course it's true. Who would want invasive thoughts? Who wants to see that? I don't want to ever see that in my head. I don't want to have this thought again. It's totally messed up when I have this thought. That's my problem here. I want these thoughts to go away. I don't want to think about overeating food or getting that drink or smoking the cigarette. I want it to be out of my mind. Interesting question, though. Can you absolutely know it's true? That this must go away. You want it to go away. You want the thinking to end. And by the way, at the same time of all of this, that it is absolutely intrusive. And it's okay if you still say yes. That you can't see that these pictures, this images, the thought, nature of thought itself isn't like kind of horrendous. It's all right if we say yes. I mean, in doing the work, it's just looking and noticing what the answers is as a open-minded investigation. And you might say, no, I don't know. It looks like thoughts are appearing. I mean, I didn't invent them. I think I'll begin to have horrendous trouble with food and eating. I'm looking for my own example. And obsessively, we use the word obsessively and repetitively think that I want to get food, and then also at the same time think I don't want to get food, and have like this opposition running. And I just want that to sort of come into my experience. I'm going to have that happen and repeat itself over and over again like a giant storm of fighting. And it's going to produce behaviors that I do and feelings that I do and discouragement, and get really wrapped up in that and all the different repetitive thinking that happens over and over again. And I'm going to do that for years. Of course, I would never plan that or invent that. I think. Suffering. What happens when we think these thoughts are unwanted? They must get out of here. I can't stand them. They're intruding. I'm going to label them intrusive. What happens when we believe that? And it's just such a weird inquiry. I get it. Because it looks like they are. It looks like they are unwanted. But what happens when we think it? More resistance. I find there's very little access to any kind of rest or relaxation. I also lose the awareness that thinking is just happening like a little machine, that I'm talking about a machine that's running, like just part of the organism that I am, just this mind that's churning out images and ideas. Sort of looks simplistic. I'm forgetting, when I believe that thought, that I'm just seeing images, that it's not actually happening right in front of me. I'm unaware, even if something is sort of happening in front of me. I don't know, like I walked into a bar and I'm somebody who's had tons of trouble with alcohol, let's say. So I see images everywhere happening all around me. And I see the people and I see the scene. When I'm believing, I don't want to see this. This is really troubling, or this is really desirable, which feels so uncomfortable, both of them. I get scared. I feel overwhelmed. I feel resistant. I feel the push and pull. I feel at war with reality. I'm totally at war with reality. I'm definitely believing that my thinking is, when I'm thinking this thought and I'm believing it's true, I'm thinking the thought and I'm believing it, that these thoughts are totally unwanted, need to get out of here. I start thinking that there's something wrong with me, that there's no peace possible in this situation, that I start to see everything that's terrible, maybe even humanity itself. There's incredible discouragement, I notice, resignation, hopelessness. I might even think just whatever it takes, whatever's the easiest way to get these thoughts to stop is to kind of assert something happening. So who would we be? Who would we be without the belief this is an impossible situation? These are unwanted. My thinking itself and the way I'm seeing something is intruding. The thoughts are horrible, horrific, hard. Got to get rid of them. I mean, who would I be without that belief? Really rather strange in some ways. Who would it be without the thought, I don't even want to think this? I even can see, we might even actually do this investigation or open up to thought, like we're not doing the work so that we get rid of thoughts. That's never, I'm afraid that's not going to really bring about the peace that we're looking for. What if I'm just so curious? I kind of love the investigation. Something is just drawn to wanting to see more about this. I'm never saying I should be doing the work, shouldn't be doing that other thing. What if my thinking, what is thought? These images, firing impulses, maybe words crossing through the mind where you see letters or words formed, sounds that you think you hear. I know it's in the silence, but the brain is remembering. And what is it? It's if something's come into view and then it like recorded, kind of whatever's happening there in the mind, and we're seeing it over and over again. And it's funny to say that I'm seeing it because it's like my eyes aren't seeing it. It's a picture in the head. Where is that? It's just invisible. It's very volatile. It can just fade away in an instant. Who knows what's happening when it's going to go or leave? What if you even had this sort of absurd and strange idea of turning around the whole thing and saying, this is welcome? If that seems like too much, what if you could let all that thinking be there? There's the thinking happening. Just let it be there. The feeling of welcome or allowing or, resting, letting it be. What if something could turn that around and just say, it's fine that all these thoughts are here. I'm willing to have them be here. What if I could call them, not so intrusive? Maybe the label itself that says intrusive thoughts. What if I don't know what they are? I don't have to, I don't actually experience them as invaders coming from outside somewhere and coming in. What if they're just little, blips on a radar screen, or just coming out of a mind? What do they say a brain is? I'm not a brain scientist by any stretch, but it's electrical impulses. Who would I be without the story? These are the wrong thoughts to have. These are bad thoughts to have. They are unwelcome here. I don't ever want to have them. Even without the thought, that I need to get rid of anything, any of these thoughts. Who would I be? It was okay that I've thought anything I've ever thought. It was perfectly fine to have had the thinking that I've had in my life. That I thought what I thought all through my 20s, and I thought things about food and eating and weight and body and greediness and good and bad, right and wrong. And I got really into it. And what if that was actually in service somehow? It doesn't mean I have to keep thinking those. But what if there's something about that is natural, and that it went that way based on what I grabbed onto and believed was true? It really looked so true. I love how when I look at all that uncomfortable thinking and all that terrible and the visions and nightmarish thinking, or being frightened and waking up in the middle of the night about various things, relationships usually in my life. What if that's just the way minds work, how they show up, what they do, and notice how it doesn't last. Like if the project here was, I want you to never forget that and constantly be thinking about it and have that appear as often as possible, you would actually forget. There'd be these huge gaps in between. And there'd be no thought, wow, I didn't think about that. Shoot, let's get back to it. It feels to many, like somebody was sharing in the year of inquiry, the thoughts are just constantly like, I'm looking and seeing for what's wrong with life, said somebody. I'm looking to see what's dangerous. I'm seeing things as their lack of safety that's in them. I'm kind of navigating and maneuvering and walking through the world with, caution and carefulness. And what if that was okay? just for a moment, seeing what if there's nothing terribly, terribly wrong with, the human thinking in that particular way. It's just the nature of what happens. I just love the feeling of something relaxing about the whole entire thing, whatever thinking is. Who would I be without the story? These thoughts need to change. I demand they change. They're so unwanted. They're intrusive. They're uncomfortable. They're depressing. And yes, I love that we have inquiry to see that those the feelings and what they're saying, and kind of really like just sit with it and be and open up and see that it's just fleeting, figment of the imagination, as they say, a figment of the imagination. And I know that I've said myself, I wish I didn't see that thing, because now I'm repeatedly seeing it. But I also like that it goes away. It fades out. But something kind of amazing about what if it was okay to think whatever it is that I've been thinking, and I can allow that with, just allow it to be present, instead of looking at it like it's such a blight on existence, or so wrong or so terrible that it's been here. I have a quote from Byron Katie that sort of speaks to all of this, that I think is beautiful. It says, "The work always brings us back to who we really are." She's speaking about investigating your thinking with the 4 questions. "Each belief investigated to the point of understanding allows the next belief to surface. You undo that one, and then you undo the next and the next. And then you find that you're actually looking forward to the next belief." Isn't that something? Not just, allowing, but like, okay, life, let's see what happens next. Bring it. At some point, you may notice that you are meeting every thought, feeling, person, and situation as a friend, until eventually you are looking for a problem, until finally you notice that you haven't had one in years. Now, we don't need to use that as some sort of goal. You can hear the minds going, wow, I want to get there. Assume that you are there. What if you have access to the one who is not actually thinking and not trapped inside all that fear and terror, really, and sadness and despair? I like noticing that when I feel sad and despairing or frightened, it actually fades away. It's like something's getting looked at, and but the feelings in the body show me, wow, I'm really believing something that isn't really true for me. What if I remembered that when my body gets really activated? And what if that's actually there? That thing that, there's a storm, and a storm ends, a storm of thought, and then it ends. That always happens. I mean, it's not absolutely nonstop thought. There are all these gaps in between, sometimes even with compulsion or some trauma. People will say, I've been living with this for, 30 years or however, 50 years. The thing is, it's never true, because it hasn't been nonstop thinking about that for all that time. There's been sleeping, there's been laughing, there's been talking with other people, there's been working, there's been all kinds of other human activity and always sort of falling back behind everything, something like you are the container that all the thinking is happening inside of. Something is steadily present there, just life being lived the whole time, no matter how much thinking has ever happened. And that thing is very steady. So, yeah, who would we be without the story? The thoughts themselves are totally unwanted. What if I turned it around, even though it sounds kind of bizarre or absurd? I want these thoughts. They are allowed here, at least, if you can't quite find that I want them. But if I did, how could that be true, that they're accepted here? I like that they fade away. It's kind of nice to notice. And it's only a thought that says they're unwanted. Don't you like noticing that? It's only a thought that says, these are terrible thoughts. These are terrible images. My feet, which don't think at all, or my hands, which don't have a brain that's thinking, the perspective of the hands or the feet is just life living itself, just pulsing, being. They're fine. They've gone with me everywhere I've ever gone. The blood pumping, my heart beating, always been here. So the perspective of that, at least I can find that, is just an open, allowing, non-judgmental, simple place to be without thought. And we could talk about some other day. Sometimes people have an objection that comes up is if I'm like this, I'll never do anything or accomplish anything or try anything or push for anything. And that's another great inquiry. Can I really know that's true? I find that the less I assert energy against thoughts or whatever it is that's happening, or try to control any situation, or if I do the work on anything I'm freaked out about, the less I'm thinking something is true, the better it works out. 100% of the time. Lots of love, everybody.